Well, torrential rains are heading for Thailand within days. That is adding to the urgency of what is a round-the-clock effort to free 12 boys and their football coach from a flooded cave. Crews clearing pathways inside that cave, suggesting that the rescue will take place sooner rather than later. 11 days into the ordeal, the boys, well, they got a new show of support. These are classmates singing and praying for their friends. Crews have been working on a phone line so that boys can talk to their parents. Well, for those parents, the wait has been agonising, but now they can watch their sons on a screen and hope to hold them soon as well. Anna Corrin has more.
A day after the boys were reached, a very different atmosphere underground. Warm in space blankets, well fed with pork and sticky rice. And cared for, watched and entertained by these crack military personnel, a doctor and a nurse. The dolphin emblem of the Thai Navy SEALs scratched into stone. Another crest, England's 3 lions on a muddy football shirt. While other kids have watched the World Cup, they have huddled in this dark cave for 11 days now. Their families watch the feed from a tent in the jungle outside.
I am dying to see him. I miss my son.
The mood lighter after over a week of no sleep and mental health support.
I am so glad he is still alive and safe. I'm speechless. I want to thank everyone who helped. Thank you very much.
Police have waved away suggestions that the 25-year-old coach was negligent in leading the boys into the cave on a weekend day out. Exploring was something that all the boys love doing. Their families say they know that.
I want to tell him that you did your best taking care of the boys. Please don't be worried.
While the sun shines here, pumps drain hundreds of thousands of litres per hour from the flooded cave tunnels.
They don't have to all come out at the same time because all of them are in different situations.
Officials say the children will come out one by one as each grows strong enough to escape. Outside the cave, soldiers link arms to create a road through the jungle for ambulances to arrive. A practice drill, but perhaps an early glimpse of a coming miracle. The rescue that seemed almost impossible just days ago. Anna Corrin, CNN, Chiang Rai, Thailand.
Well, it's great to see those boys smiling and looking relaxed, isn't it? Jonathan Miller has been on the scene following this search and rescue. Jonathan, as the families are at least able to see these images of these boys, what's the situation right now with regard getting them out of that cave?
Well, the situation, Becky, hasn't really changed massively in 24 hours, other than the fact that they've had this reprieve from the weather, this unexpected no-rain day again. And, you know, they've got a very, very small window if they're going to try to extract them through those partially submerged passageways, because, you know, once that torrential monsoon rain starts, it will flood that cavern completely and it will keep them in there for the next 4 months probably. Now, the divers have been down there with them today, training them how to use the sub-aqua gear, the scuba gear, and you know, these boys many of them haven't even learned to swim before. So, I mean, one of the things that the divers are saying is that, you know, coming out through these narrow passageways, particularly with sort of oxygen masks and tanks on like this, you know, you can get stuck. It's very claustrophobic, and, you know, it could cause panic. And I just would fear that, you know, doing it like that would be a real problem.
What is the atmosphere at the mouth of this cave?
The atmosphere at the mouth of the cave, right, there's a huge media presence, that's one thing. Everyone very busy reporting and speculating on what's going on. But there is also a substantial number of parents here. There are mums and dads who desperately want to have telephone contact with their kids and to be able to speak to them. And they tried yesterday to put a line down into the cave so that they could do that. And there was some problem, I think an electronic problem, maybe water getting onto the cable, meant that they haven't managed to speak to them yet. The only information that we have really about the condition of the boys and how they're, you know, faring is from these videos that have been released. And, you know, it's very sweet, as you said, you know, to see them doing that traditional Thai Y greeting. They're so courteous, thankful to the rescuers, and in relatively good spirits and in reasonable physical shape.
Jonathan Miller at the mouth of that cave, reporting on the ground for you. Jonathan, thank you. So as this ordeal moves into a 12th day, it looks like there are no really good options for rescuing these children. Andrew Watson is an experienced rescuer with Mines Rescue Service and an expert in dealing with the stress of confined spaces. He joins us from Scotland via Skype. And the images in Anna's report earlier showing the boys smiling, Andrew, and looking relatively relaxed, which really belies their circumstances, doesn't it? Just you are an expert in these situations. Just remind us what they will be going through, and then I want to talk our viewers through what we think will happen next.
Well, I think what you're seeing is the impact of them having absolutely no information and nothing, and they're 9 days in there with no information at all. Then all of a sudden, the hope of rescue appears in the form of the divers, which obviously gets them on the upside. And I think what you're seeing now is perhaps a reflection on the fact that we're dealing with children, and you don't have that sort of maturity of an understanding of the impact of the situation. And obviously they're still seeing divers coming in, therefore they can get out. And their expectations will be up, and hopefully that has been managed, that they're being honest with the children, that they're giving them the detailed information on there are still issues to be solved around getting them out of the cave.
Well, let's talk about those issues then, Andrew. I want to give our viewers an idea of the logistics that we are talking about here. Let's show you how far the boys are from the entrance. That is about 4 kilometres, and you can see the water that is blocking their way out. So it seems that there are 2 options at present. Teach these kids to dive, and as Jonathan Miller was pointing out, and we've been pointing out over the past 24 hours or so, these kids may not even be able to swim as we understand it. Teaching them to dive in those sort of confined environments on that dry plateau within that very, very, very confined area is going to be tough. The other is by drilling them out. When you consider, from your experience, those 2 options, which plan looks like the better one at this point?
I'll be honest with you, neither of them. I would be looking to try and keep them in there for as long as possible and get into a position where you could walk out without any assistance at all. But if I look at the 2 methods you've raised, I think people are referring to the drilling because of what happened to the 33, the Chilean miners. With all respect to the people thinking along those lines, they had the perfect conditions there. They had flat terrain, they could get the machinery into place, and there was no interference within the mine workings themselves. Whereas if you look at the terrain we're talking about in Thailand, it's very mountainous, very hilly. Getting the equipment up there would be practically impossible. And also, as they drill down, they're going to be coming across other voids, other caves, and you could actually make the situation worse unless they have a complete and total understanding of the geology involved. In other words, they could drill through and access further water, which again would finish up running into the cave where the kids are. As regards the diving option, which might turn out to be the only option, especially if the water level is going to be rising, that is a major decision for anyone involved in the rescue. I mean, we're talking about very, very experienced divers getting into them to actually help them and assist them. But we're talking about children now, not just wearing breathing apparatus, but wearing breathing apparatus in the most extreme conditions you can imagine. Normally, if you're diving in scuba gear, it's to see the sights. This is completely different. This is actually to move through and investigate. So
yeah, we did a bit of a test yesterday. No, You make a really good point. Normally, any divers who are watching this will be reminded that they generally dive in open water with good visibility, you know, for enjoyment more than anything else. Cave divers do dive for enjoyment. I've always thought they're a bit mad, but clearly, you know, this is these are experts, and this is a really tough environment. I want to give our viewers, Andrew, look at just one small piece of what is this enormous operation going on outside the cave. Volunteers here are packing food for the SEAL team to deliver, and you can see that they're packing up pork with sticky rice, placed, of course, in waterproof bags. We know the kids were absolutely delighted when they got that first meal sometime yesterday. They told those divers, and we heard it on the video, when they first found those boys, they said, "We are hungry. We are hungry." This is just a tiny part of a massive operation. Just how smooth is the coordination as far as you can judge?
To be honest, it looks as if it's well coordinated, and they're taking a very sensible approach to that, because they keep saying they're going to take as much time as it possibly will require to make sure that when they do attempt a rescue, that it's going to be done as safely as possible. And I just hope there is enough time for them to do that planning and to make sure it's effective. But we've always got to consider that the choice might be taken away from them, and it looks like the weather potentially will do that. From a rescue management point of view, the options might be down to one option, in which case, no choice. They would have to do something to ensure they save the kids' lives.
We're all hoping for the best. Andrew, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Andrew Watson with some great insight there.